Hello, everyone who's joining in. Thank you all for taking the time to come to this webinar today. We'll get you guys started here in just a moment. Just keeping it track here, see how many folks we've got. While we're waiting to get started, I would say that do make sure you have your Grammarly account pulled up and open. And if you don't have access to Grammarly yet, please go to the store and purchase it there. And I think we can get you guys access. I'm going to go see if I can find that link to get you all there. I think I have it right here from what Eric had sent me. So I'm going to just drop this in the chat. It's going to everyone. So if you don't have access to Grammarly, you do want to go to the web store and you want to go ahead and grab that there so you can go ahead and get access to the tool. If you already have it, I would recommend having it pulled up as we go through today's demo and training, just to make sure that you guys can access all of those wonderful doodads and gizmos, as I so lovingly call them, all of our wonderful tools to get you guys configured and ready to go with Grammarly. All right, I can wait till we're maybe like another minute or so, get some more folks in here. We can go from there. I hope everyone enjoyed our snow here in the Denver area last Friday. Tasha and I were talking about that before we got started. It's just excellent to have some snow and then get that nice, beautiful weather. Although I don't know about anyone else, but the pollen has also been a nice surprise. So, wonderful mix of all things here in Colorado. All right, give about one more minute, and then maybe I'll go ahead and get started there. And we'll talk about just some housekeeping things as well. All right, I have three after, so I'm going to go ahead and get started. So I believe we're recording today's session. So if you do need to reference back to this, you are able to do so. Again, you do want to make sure you have Grammarly if you're watching this in a recorded session or if you are here live today, so that you can click along with all the different things that we're going to talk about. And then there is a Q&A that is open for everyone. So as you do have questions, please go ahead and put those into the Q&A. The team here is going to help me field those as we go through it. My goal is to have some time at the end to answer any questions that may come up, but certainly feel free to drop those as we go along. And if I have time as we go through each section, I'll pause there. So, my name is Rachel Bumstead. I am just west of the Denver area, so happy to be doing a local training call here. Today, we are going to be covering how to use your Grammarly tool and really get the most out of it. So, we're going to talk about the intro to Grammarly. What is it? What are maybe some of those new features that are available to you? We'll dive a little bit more into the features that you all can use in your day-to-day. We're going to get into a hands-on section, and that's going to be where we're going to really dive into your Grammarly configuration, how to start to use it, things to know, and then we'll talk about some of the specific AI capabilities that we have. The name of the game today is productivity. How can Grammarly help you be productive in your day-to-day, whether you're at the Anschutz campus and you're talking about your patient work and you're, going through your day-to-day through emails, if you're on the Denver campus and you're working through your course load, if you're a faculty member or a student, we are all striving to be as productive as possible. And Grammarly has some great tools to help you really accomplish that and embed it seamlessly into your workflow. So like I said, I want you all to be able to learn how to customize Grammarly for your day-to-day. So if there's been some things that as you've been using it, you're like, man, I wish I could do this thing differently, or it didn't give me this type of suggestion, I'm going to show you how to customize it to your experience. We want to focus on that productivity, and then we want to talk about those best practices with leveraging AI in your day-to-day. So Grammarly, just to cover this as that intro, Grammarly is an AI writing assistant that follows you everywhere you're writing. Works in over 500,000 different web and desktop applications. And that's by utilizing both the desktop and the extension, and then all of these other areas that you can use Grammarly as well. So once you have your license from the campus, you can go ahead and get that on your phone. You can get on your iPad. You can use it on your computer. And then we also have a browser extension as well that we'd recommend using to get kind of that full coverage. And you'll note where those things are going to work when we're thinking about your desktop and your browser experience. Today's training is focused on the well, rather the desktop version, but it's going to work the same in web. But I will not be covering today the iPhone, iPad, or Android devices. I'm happy to send along any documentation around that so you guys can see how to use that at a later time. So let's talk about the features within Grammarly. So if you've seen Grammarly before, let me pop over here to an example. Grammarly, once you have it working on your device, you'll start to see all of these colorful highlights. And just to level set, so we're using the same language, these colorful highlights are called suggestions. That's what we call them here at Grammarly. So it just simply means that, hey, we've seen something that maybe isn't spelled right, maybe this isn't the clearest writing, and we're going to suggest that you change it to something else. You change it to that correct version. So when you have Grammarly up and running, it'll look something like this, where you can see again all those different suggestions with the recommendations for how to change your language, as well as that Grammarly icon floating somewhere on your screen, usually the lower right-hand corner, but we'll talk about how to move that in your desktop application here shortly. That tells you what are all the different suggestions and things that you may want to consider changing when you're in your writing. Now, the different types of suggestions that you're going to see. So that demo doc I created on the very important subject of creamy versus crunchy peanut butter is talking about correctness. So this is where we're making sure that, I call it kind of the typo errors, but is your spelling, grammar, and punctuation, is all of this correct? Or are there some things that we can update in this to make sure it is looking really solid? The next type of suggestion that we have are the clarity suggestions. These are going to show up as blue suggestions, and they're going to help you to make sure that that sentence that you just wrote is really clear, it's really concise, it makes sense to your reader. Sometimes we can get a little verbose and maybe add a lot more stuff into our writing, and then it ultimately changes the way our sentence is coming across. So Grammarly is going to just try to say, hey, here's how you might rewrite this to make it a little bit clearer. And then delivery. So this is where we just want to make sure that the tone is sort of looking the way that you want it to be. And that's going to be the purple, I believe, underlines that we have in our suggestions. So that's the basic of Grammarly. That's like kind of what probably most people know is this view where it's, well, hey, it's showing me these different highlights. Great, cool. I can go ahead and update these and we'll go through this here momentarily. But most people stop there. So let's talk about the stuff that's new to you all, or maybe you didn't know that you ever could configure in your Grammarly account if you had used it in a previous time. So one piece that we have are the language settings. So your language settings allow you to do a couple different things. One, you can set your dialect. So if you are writing in American English, you want to have American English spellings, you can include that. But if you're going to go do a semester abroad somewhere in, let's say, England or something like that, and you wanted to have British English spelling suggestions, you can change your dialect to be able to say, hey, I actually need to have the British spelling for these words instead of the English spelling. So you can customize that experience. And then one of my other favorite features that we have, and I'll show you all where we can dive into this when we get into the hands-on portion, is something called Fluency Assistance. And this is really great if English is an additional language for you. So in this example, we have that French is my primary language, which it 100% is not. When I was in school, I was terrible at French. So I'm just putting that caveat out there. But let's pretend it is my primary language I speak at home. And when I tell Grammarly that my primary language is French and I turn on the fluency assistance, what it's going to do is it's going to signal to Grammarly that, hey, I may write something that maybe makes sense from my French speaking brain, like let's say I'm trying to talk about luck. And instead I use the word chance because in French, the word for luck is chance. Well, to me, it makes sense, but Grammarly is going to catch that, hey, you wrote this and you speak French as your primary language. You're probably talking about luck. Here is an enhanced fluency recommendation or suggestion that you can have. Here's how you can sound more fluent in English. So this is a really phenomenal tool to, again, if English is an additional language for you and you speak something else at home, to kind of get even better recommendations in your writing to make sure that it's sounding very fluent. So this will be a huge thing for us to turn on. And this is something that, again, it's not necessarily maybe new if you'd had a free or premium account previously, but maybe you can turn on to enhance your experience going forward. But something that is new that I'm very excited to show and get you all using are something called snippets. It's our feature called snippets. So think in your day to day. How many times do you end up writing something that you repeat? Or you write something that maybe requires just a little bit of adjustments. Maybe you have a format you like to follow where you have certain bullet points or you want to insert, your thoughts on something, but it follows this general template that you want to have in place. And when we think about that, it probably happens quite a bit. I know it does in my day today. And when we're thinking about even just being in school, you might have had maybe even just your signature. Like, are you always including what your department is and what degree you have in your signatures? Do you need to add that into more places? Snippets are a really phenomenal way to start to incorporate all of that into your writing because snippets are essentially templates or any kind of placeholder text that you can insert wherever Grammarly is working, which, like we said earlier, is in over 500,000 different web and desktop applications. So to use a snippet, you would just use this backslash key, and I promise you it's going to be the opposite key of what you probably think it is. Most people go with the forward slash, but it is the backslash option. And so when you insert that snippet, you can have something like this, where let's say this is someone from the IT department and they need to have some reboot instructions. Makes sense that they're going to probably include this a lot in their day to day. So they use a slash, they type in reboot, and it just inserts where they're writing. Well, let's see an example of this in my document over here. So just to show what I'm doing. So, there we go. I'm just updating all sorts of things. So here I am writing. I know Grammarly's working, which means that I'm going to be able to use my snippets. So I'm going to use that backslash option. Now, that's that backslash right above your return key on the right-hand side. So not the forward slash. I see a lot of folks come in here, they start to do this, and then they're like, nothing's happening. Or I've had folks do two of these and nothing's going to show up. It's just one. And then it brings up all of these different snippets that you may have already created. So I have one that says my email signature. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to actually not even use my mouse. I'm going to go ahead and type in email signature and I can get it to highlight that one. I click enter and it inserts that signature for me. So I'm a junior, I'm pre-med. I can include this anywhere I'm writing now. I don't have to rewrite it every single time. But it could also be, I think I have one that's called, it's like a discussion board post where maybe I know how I kind of want to respond to these every time I have that discussion board post, but I know I need to add in my own thoughts on it as well. But I don't want to have to think about, hey, what's the format I write this in? So I can include that in my snippet. And then I have some places where I need to talk about, okay, here's what the topic or prompt was in that discussion board. Here are these key ideas that I'm going to be talking about. And then here's my response. But it has this part in here that helps me kind of stay on track in that discussion board post. So those snippets, extremely helpful when you think again about anything you're writing in your day to day, whether it's something you're not going to change, like an email signature, or it is something that you're going to update and you have a couple different maybe text fields you want to update within there. We'll go through where and how to create these, but something I want you to keep in mind is that you have 5,000 characters to use within these. So they are by no means small. So again, when you're thinking about productivity in your day to day and you want to be able to have repeatable text, or maybe it's just even a whole outline. I'm getting ready to write my abstract. I'm getting ready to write my, research paper. Here are the things I know I'm going to need. It's going to have a title. It's going to have the proposal. It's going to have the abstract. It's going to have these bullet points for the argument, and then whatever else it might be. You can put that outline in a snippet, insert it into your fresh doc wherever you're writing, and then start to fill it out as you're doing your research. So noodle on that for a little bit because we're going to come back to how to create your snippets here momentarily. But this is, again, a really great new feature you all have available to you now. Now, another great feature that we have is Grammarly's generative AI. Now, we have a lot of different AI tools that we're going to cover today, including something called Docs with Agents, which I think you all are going to really like. I know it's personally been something that's changed my day to day when it comes to productivity. But sometimes we also just want to have a quick look of, hey, can you help me turn this document into bullet points? Or I need to summarize this. Or what are some areas that could be improved here in my article? And the Grammarly generative AI, because again, it follows you everywhere, this AI is going to be there with you to use at any given time. So you can use it from brainstorming and sort of ideation to language translation to summarization, however, it's going to make sense for you. And what I really like about this flow is that you stay in the flow of your writing. You don't have to go to another tool and copy paste responses. You can just work with it right where you are in your Word document, in your email, in your Google Doc, wherever it might be. Just to show you a quick view of where you would access that. So when Grammarly is running, we can see again in that lower right-hand corner, there's my 32 suggestions that I have. Awesome. And then if I look to the left of it, there's the Grammarly Assistant, which is the generative AI. And when you open it, it gives you the prompt of, hey, what are some things you want to do? Or you can go ahead and add in your own prompts. We'll come back to this when we get into the demo, but I just wanted to call that out. Now we're going to move to the hands-on portion. So if some of those things were really exciting for you, awesome. I'm going to show you how to set those things up. And then again, as we get towards the end and we do our AI demo, that's where we're going to really dive into how to use that generative AI and how to accept your different suggestions and then what this Docs with Agents or this editor experience is. So I need everyone for this hands-on piece to go to account.grammarly.com. So if you have your Grammarly account, you want to go to that account.grammarly.com webpage. And this is going to open to a page similar to what I have here. And this is going to just simply show you your account. So I'm giving some folks some time to get there. So again, that's account.grammarly.com. Now yours will look different than mine because mine is in a demo environment, so just keep that in mind. But yours should be set up for the Anschutz and Denver campus, so it should be a little bit different. So if you've gotten to where I am, that's account.grammarly.com. You should be on this profile page. And again, this simply says, who are you? What is your, role? Great. We don't really need all this information, but if you wanted to know what it looks like, here's where it is. Where we do want to go though now is to where it says feature customization. So there's 2 lines below the profile on the left. So it's under the account tab and then feature customization. So as you've been using Grammarly, if there's some things that you were like, man, I don't like this feature, or I want to change the way I call my snippets, feature customization is where you can do this. This is how we start to unblock how you're using Grammarly to make sure, again, it's embedded in your workflow in a way that makes sense for you. So for the generative AI or that Grammarly light bulb that we saw, the assistant, you can disable any of these different settings that we see here. So if you don't want to see your prompt history, you can turn that off. If you don't want to have it for quick replies in your email, you can turn that off. This doesn't change it for anyone else. This is just your personal settings. Snippets, you want to make sure you have these on. I have gotten on these calls before where people are going, hey, my snippets aren't working. And we come in, we check their feature customization, and they accidentally disabled them. So do make sure you have those on if you're interested in using those. And then right below that, we have how you can change the shortcut. So the default is to use that backslash key. And the reason we use the backslash key is because you want this to be something that you're not going to use all the time. Like imagine if I made this a period, and every time I write a sentence and I put a period in, that snippets window is going to be popping open. Well, I probably don't want that. So we want it to be something you can remember to access, but you're not going to use in your day to day. But if you are frequently using this key and you're noticing it's getting in the way, you can change it to something else. So you can change it to a plus sign, you can change it to anything on your keyboard, and this will update how that snippets window populates for you when you're writing and you're typing. Same thing for creating a new snippet, you can assign it something else. Now, continuing on with this setup, the last piece on here is something called suggestion bundles. And it's just like it says it is, where it's saying, hey, when you have a sentence and there's multiple red corrections or those red suggestions in there with spelling, grammar, punctuation, Grammarly is going to save you time by saying you don't have to click each one of these to fix it. You can just hover over the sentence and get all of them edited in one. Let's take a look at what I mean. So here I am, and I have my abstract here. And at the very top, you can see I have quite a few correctness suggestions highlighting. So a suggestion bundle simply says, okay, I'm going to go ahead and hover, and I'm going to click, and it's going to fix everything in that sentence. I recommend leaving this on to save time and give you all a little bit, faster editing. However, if that doesn't work in your flow and you want to go one by one, you want to really read each of these and review them, you can disable the suggestion bundles and then you'll still get those suggestions. It'll just ask you to hover over each one and click them. So it does all the same stuff, it's just a slightly different function. It's what works best in your workflow when you're editing your writing. If you're unsure, I always recommend starting with it on, see how you like it, and then you can come back to this feature customization page and disable it at any time. Okay, continuing on now with your setup. So on the left-hand side, we're going to go to where it says writing on the left, and then we're going to go to where it says language settings. So that was writing on the left-hand navigation, and then language settings. Now, I already talked through what all of these wonderful things do here in our slides, so I'm not going to cover it in depth here, but I am going to say yours probably doesn't have a lock sign like mine does, but this is where you can change it to whatever dialect makes sense for you. And then it might look something like this when you first come in, where it says your primary language is Afrikaans and your fluency assistance is disabled. That is the expected state when you get started. So you can go ahead and choose English or whatever it might be if you have an additional language. I'm going to change mine back to French here. And then you can turn on the fluency assistance if this applies to you. If English is your primary language, don't worry about the fluency assistance. It's more for folks who English is an additional language. So hopefully you've done that, you've got it set up. You never need to come back to this page again, but if you ever need to, it is in your writing settings. Okay, these next two parts we're going to cover are big usability pieces with Grammarly when we're getting started for us to consider. So we're going to go to where it says your preferences on the right-hand side here. Now, mine currently has a bunch of lock signs, but you can probably see that yours will not have a bunch of lock signs. What this page means is that it's saying, what are the writing suggestions that you want to have on? So, for example, if I feel like the Oxford comma is, and this is a hotly debated content, a hotly debated piece of grammar here. I know I'm personally I'm pro Oxford comma, but let's say you don't want to have your Oxford comma on. It's not appropriate in your writing. You need to have it off. You can disable it. If you've noticed that Grammarly has been saying, hey, add your Oxford comma, add your Oxford comma, your preferences are where you can set this for you. There should be no lock signs on yours, so you can just go ahead and disable it. And as you go through this list, you'll notice there's lots and lots of different types of suggestions that you can review. You can break it down by the categories in that upper right-hand corner to review how do you want to have your punctuation be changed, how do you want to talk about your numbers or the structure. This is a great place if you've been using Grammarly and you've been like, oh, Grammarly, stop giving me these suggestions. Come look at this page and see if it's something you can disable because it'll just make an even better writing experience for you. Again, though, Grammarly only ever provides suggestions. We're never going to change something without you saying that it's okay or you can dismiss it. So very important to keep that in mind if there are things that maybe you want most of the time, but there's sometimes you don't want to have it. I would recommend bookmarking this page. You can do so either in that left-hand navigation or at the very top where that little flag is. And that bookmark means that you can go to your bookmarks in the upper left-hand corner and come back to this at a later time. So if you are playing with Grammarly and you're like, oh, this has been great, but now I've decided I'm suddenly anti-Oxford comma, you can come in here and turn that off and then definitely let me know why you wanted to turn it off because again, I'm pro Oxford comma. I personally I think it makes a lot of sense. Okay, cool. Moving on from here. There's one other piece that we want to cover in your setup, and that is your dictionary. So maybe you've been writing something and you have a word that's spelled in camel case, which means something like this, where it's two words together with a capital. And Grammarly gets really angry when we do that, right? It says, hey, this is misspelled. Obviously, you meant to separate this into two words, right? Or maybe there's something that has a unique spelling and you're like, Grammarly, this is a word, I promise, or I'm needing to use it in my day to day. Your dictionary is your allow list. So if you're finding that you're getting that red correctness suggestion, you'll want to add that word to your dictionary. This is one way you can do it. So my dog's name is Bagel. I'm going to pretend that her full legal name is Bagel Dog, one word squished together, camel case like this. I type her name every day. Of course, I'm going to want to make sure Grammarly is not telling me it's spelled wrong. So when I assign this, it just simply means that Grammarly is going to ignore it. I don't have to worry about it fixing it. And then at any time, I can come back and delete this. So especially if you're working on some research or you're doing something that's maybe more project driven, let's say you're only using it this semester, you could add it to your dictionary for this semester and then remove it the next semester so that Grammarly can continue to flag that word if it is something that is misspelled. So that is the writing setup. One other thing to add around the dictionary too, before I forget here, is you can also add words to your dictionary while you're on the go. So we're going to come back to this in a minute, but let's say I find a word where my spelling, like let's just say I wanted this to be the way I spell preference. If you see that little book icon with a plus, that's how you can add it to your dictionary while you're editing. I say that because I've definitely clicked that button sometimes too fast and I didn't mean to, and now it's going to have this incorrect spelling of preference in my dictionary. And so if I did that, it is helpful to know where your dictionary is so that you can come in here and say, hey, this is misspelled. Please make sure to correct me on this every time I write it Grammarly. Okay, hopefully you have some things that you've either been able to adjust so far or you're going to go back and check out with your preferences. We're going to talk about the snippets, and then we're going to get into our demo with how to use Grammarly in something like Word or wherever you're writing. And we're going to talk about this Docs experience where you can write and get a little bit more going. So down on that navigation side towards the bottom, we're going to click on where it says Tools, and then that's going to take you to where it says Snippets. So again, that left-hand navigation, we go to Tools, and then we're going to go to where it says Snippets. So in this view, now I have a lot in here. You probably don't have nearly as many, but you may not have anything in here. These are what you're seeing that are called collections. Think of it like a folder. You can create as many collections as you want. So, as you're thinking about those things you use in your day to day, maybe you have email responses as one collection. Maybe you have discussion board, templates as another collection. Maybe you have student feedback if you're a professor as another collection. So you can break this out in a way that makes sense for you. From a organization standpoint, I would always recommend having maybe more collections to help with themes so that you can know when you're coming back and editing, I needed to update this email responses one because I'm not a junior anymore, I'm a senior, and I need to update it for the next year. And I can find it quickly instead of having to go through each one of these and search for them. To get started, you click on Create Collection in the upper right-hand corner. And then you're going to give that collection a name. So I'm just going to give it demo as my name. And I'm going to make sure it's only for me, which is all you can choose. Great. I now have my collection ready to go. Only you can see and use the snippets you are creating. So I know there's a lot that I can see here, but your snippets are only for you. These ones that say only me, only you can see, only you can use. If you have a buddy who's using Grammarly and they're like, that snippet is so cool, you got to send it over to them, maybe in like an email or a text or something, so they can add it to their own snippet collection. Now, Once you have the collection, you can click into it and then you can click on where it says create snippet. And this is where you can get really creative. So I'm going to call this my demo snippet, and I'm just going to put some basic text in here. Okay, very simple. I could have a lot more though. So keep in mind, you have again 5,000 characters that you can use. So these are quite large when you think about what kind of templates you'd want to use day in, day out. But you also have some other great choices in here too. You can also add some formatting. So you can have some titles, you can have headers, you can italicize and get that rich text formatting. You can hyperlink things. You can put images and GIFs in here. You've got numbers, bullet points, all sorts of wonderful components to really make these very rich and helpful as you are writing. So I want to be very clear. Snippets work everywhere that you see Grammarly working. We have this additional part you can see on my screen on the right. Only this additional part has this little call out at the bottom. So if you're like me and you're on a MacBook and you're using the desktop Mac app, these options on the right won't work for you. But if you are using Chrome like I am, or you're on a Windows device, you can use this extra rich content field. So if maybe you have, responses to extensions, you have students asking for extensions on assignments, and you want to sign your name every time you're responding to them because you're in your learning management system. You can just click on that to say, okay, let's just use my first name or let's use my email, and I'm going to have that insert every single time that I send off this snippet. Cool. It's just going to insert for you. You also have some great options if you wanted to have a text input field. So this is good for, hey, I want to have this, think back to the discussion board option. I want to be able to have some text here right in the middle of this sentence. So, my thoughts on the discussion board for in text input topic are text input, your actual thoughts on that discussion board. These are great ways, again, to get that consistency, to get that templatization. We are all doing about 1,000,001 things a day. So I do strongly recommend checking out the snippets because they are just a great way to save you some time in that day to day, especially if you're like me and you've ever gone back to maybe a previous email or a previous message or a previous something that you've sent. And you were like, man, I really love the way that I worded this. So I'm going to copy it and paste it and just adjust it for this next time I send it. You don't have to do that anymore. You can just use these snippets. So if I love this, I'm going to click on Save Snippet. Now it's called Demo Snippet here. Let's go back to my Word document or wherever I have Grammarly working for me. So if you are on like a Mac and you have, let's say, your text messages, you could, have those snippets running there. I've definitely done that myself too. So I'm going to use that backslash key and I'm going to look for my demo snippet. There it is. I make sure it's highlighted, click enter, and it just inserts into my writing. Awesome. Again, imagine this is 5,000 characters. It's got all the different bullet points. Maybe it's got an outline format that you want to follow. It's a great way to keep that consistency time and time again. Okay, so that wraps the setup piece. We're going to move now into actually using Grammarly, which I've been showing little bits and pieces of it, but I want to make sure everyone's feeling really confident with it before we go into our doc experience. So going back to my Word document here. One, how do I know Grammarly is working? There's two ways. I can see the suggestions is one way. The second way is I can see it in the lower right-hand corner. Note, if you're using the desktop application, so you have it on your Mac, you have it on your Windows, you'll know that one is running. If it has this little, it looks like 6 little dots in the lower left-hand corner, almost like if this were a 3D object, is a little thumb pad you can grab and drag around your screen. That means you're using the desktop app. I also know I'm using the desktop app right now because I'm on my Word desktop application. The extension's not going to run here. The desktop application can move your Grammarly icon. This is one of the big questions that we get. How do I move Grammarly? It's in the way. If you're using the desktop app, you can just drag and drop it to one of those anchor points or those little like periwinkle dots you saw on my screen. If you're using the extension, let's say you're in Google Chrome and you're, working somewhere and you see Grammarly and it doesn't have that, you cannot move the extension one. So you can move the desktop app one, but you can't move the extension one. Now, how do we accept these different suggestions? So we talked about the red are your correctness ones. If we see any blue, those are going to be my clarity. How can I rewrite this to sound more clear? You saw one example where I hovered and I clicked. Great, cool. It just goes ahead and fixes that. And that is a bundle that we saw working there. Another way I can accept my Grammarly suggestions is clicking into the icon itself. And I can look and see what are all the different suggestions that I have. So my delivery is on point. Great. Thanks, Grammarly. I'm all set there. But I can also click in to say, I want to look at all my correctness sentences, all my correctness suggestions. And I can either go through this way and say, I'm going to go ahead and accept this, or I could choose to say dismiss if I don't want Grammarly to change it at this time. If you see Grammarly do something that you're like, that doesn't make any sense, you can tell Grammarly that this is an incorrect suggestion, and this will go back to our team. Also, you can note if there's any offensive content. One other piece I really like, just because I always am trying to make sure that I am writing the best I can, is if you click on these little eyes next to your suggestion, it will tell you, it'll give you a little grammar lesson on the go. So if there's something that we need to update, so I think most of these are just spelling errors or here, correcting the sentence. I can click on the eye and I can get an example of why would this be important versus why would this not? So then as you write again the next time, you can keep this in mind and maybe have less suggestions. So that's two ways to accept your suggestions within Grammarly. Let's talk about another really cool way because we also talked about how Grammarly can translate. So on the left-hand side, you might have noticed, maybe you've seen this in your Grammarly experience, that there's this gray or blue line that's saying, hey, click me, look at this. This is our paragraph level rewrite. And a lot of times we get the question from Grammarly of, Grammarly, this is great, but I don't want to accept all of the suggestions. I still like these bundled suggestions you're giving me, but I only wanted to accept two of them. I don't want to have all of them. Well, these paragraph level rewrites, which you can either get them by hovering on that gray line, or I can tell Grammarly I want to look at this particular paragraph. You can then review all of these errors at once. So it's going to look at how to fix the grammar as well as the clarity. And then I can decide, you know what, I do want to keep this. I don't want this suggestion, but I don't want this one, but I do want the rest of these. So you can pick and choose the ones that make sense. And if you like it, you click on accept and it just rewrites it for you. Awesome. But what if I want to, let's say, I want to make this a little bit more academic sounding, or I want to change the tone to be a little bit more professional. So I'm going to click on where it says revise with AI. And this is one way we can use AI in our workflow. And I can say, make this sound more professional. It's going to think about it and it's going to offer those rewrites. And yet again, I can choose what do I want to include? What do I not want to include? And if I like it, I just click on that insert and it just rewrites it for me. Awesome. Now, the last thing with the paragraph level rewrites that I wanted to call out here. So when you highlight, let's say I wanted this whole abstract and let's pretend that it is all cleaned up, it's ready to go, but I want to translate this. I want to write this not just in English, but I want to have a Spanish version. I can do that right within this paragraph level rewrite. So if this all looks good to me, I can click on the copy button here because I don't want to replace the English version I have, but I want to have English and Spanish. Now I can come down to the bottom and I can paste it and I have the Spanish version of my abstract. Something I did want to call out while we're here is that Grammarly does support different languages with our suggestions. So these are now all the different languages that you can be writing in. So if you do write in Spanish ever and you want Grammarly to catch your spelling mistakes in Spanish or any of the languages you see, Grammarly will now do so. So that's a really great feature improvement that we've had. is while we're talking about translations. Okay, I'm doing a quick time check here. So I'm gonna try and make sure I can wrap this here in the next 10 minutes. We have about 10 minutes for Q&A. I did want to check in team. Are we getting some questions in that Q&A?
We did have a question around snippets and if they were going to be available on a Mac in the future.
That's a great question. So on the desktop version, we can check in to see what that is going to look like. As of right now, I know we don't, but my recommendation is if you use the Chrome extension and you're using your snippets there, it's a great way to use that extended content. But snippets themselves do work everywhere. You just don't get that extra bonus, rich content piece on the right-hand side that we saw. Great question.
And then another question is it possible to turn off Grammarly for a certain document when working on it?
Yes, great question. So, if I'm working, let's say I'm working on this abstract, and my personal flow is that I want to write everything and then maybe turn Grammarly on, or I don't want to have it on for this writing session. When you go to your Grammarly icon, you click on that 31, there's a little settings gear in the upper right-hand corner. And what you can do is you can say, hey, Grammarly, I want you to not be in Microsoft Word for the next hour, which is what I would recommend doing. So if you're in that writing session, turn it off for the hour. If you're looking at your extension, there should be a way to say, hey, turn Grammarly off on this web page right now. And when I do that, and if you ever see Grammarly being gray, that means it's not running, right? The two things that we would look for, one, I don't see any highlights on here, and I know I've got some spelling errors. And then two, even my Grammarly icon is not green, showing me how many suggestions I have. At this time, I also cannot use my snippets. Nothing's going to work. But I could go ahead and write, and then when I'm ready, so let's say it only takes me 30 minutes, I click on the icon, Grammarly comes right back, or at an hour, it will turn on there. However, sometimes we might accidentally click, well, what if I turned it off in Microsoft Word, period? Oh no, how do I bring my AI back? You can fix this. So this means that you've blocked Grammarly, which maybe you want to do if you're having like a longer session. Again, I would recommend doing the hour just so that you can pull it back on at any time when you're ready for it. And what we're going to do is we're going to go to your Grammarly desktop application. So however you search for your desktop apps, you want to open that. And then you're going to go to where it says settings. And then on the far right, you're going to go to where it says block list. And so I can see, whoops, I've blocked Grammarly in Microsoft Word. I didn't mean to do that. So I'm going to remove it. And now when I go back to Microsoft Word, there it lives. So that little settings gear at the top right of the desktop app is your friend. It might look a little different if you're on a Windows device. I'm currently on a MacBook, so but same mechanism. You still want to find that settings gear. And then again, the extension, when you click on the extension, you can tell it to be turned off just on that, like, for, forever, or you can say just on this web page, I don't want Grammarly to run. And then you can always just toggle it back on when you're ready for it. Okay, before we take any more questions, I'm going to cover just a couple other things, and then we'll make sure to spend at least hopefully the last 10 minutes or so going through those. But those are some fantastic questions that were being asked. So sometimes we may want to know, hey, what is the tone of this document, or what is the tone of my message, my email that I'm writing? I just want to make sure this sounds okay. One thing that we have, and it's for some reason not showing right now on my screen, but there should be a little emoji typically at the upper right-hand corner of this to let you know, hey, this sounds really excited. This sounds really formal. It's a great way to also use the AI to ask it, what is the tone of this document? It's going to analyze it for me and it's going to let me know. It's scholarly and analytical. Perfect. If that's not what I'm going for, I might go ahead and work with the generative AI here to say, I want to make it more silly because that's the kind of mood I'm in today. I want to make it a little bit more silly in this abstract because it's about peanut butter, right? And so it can go ahead and work on that. It looks like it caught my Spanish piece in there, so I would want to go ahead and rerun that. Let's move on to this new docs experience. So I do want to stress Grammarly is working wherever you're writing, your email, your Word, if you're on a Mac and using Pages, as long as you can see that icon, it is there working for you, doing all these wonderful things that we've talked about. But we have this really great feature that I think you all will like. So if you have your web page still open and you click on the Grammarly icon in the upper left-hand corner, or go to where it says app.grammarly.com, that takes you to this docs page. Now, this docs page can be another place that you write. I'm going to show you why you may want to use that. So in this document, I have that same abstract about crunchy versus smooth. What peanut butter do we like? I'm personally also, I like a smooth peanut butter. I know that might be controversial as well. I like Oxford Commons and smooth peanut butter. Crunchy is good too. It's got to be the right kind of sandwich though. So here's my document. Looks the same, right? Okay, I've got those red correctness. I can go ahead and click and get it updated. Why would I want to use this? Well, you want to use it for what we call this agent bench on the right-hand side. So when we come over here, we can actually see all these really great tools to get the most out of your Grammarly experience. Let's look at one of my favorite ones, which is the reader reactions. Because a lot of times, no matter what you're doing, if you're writing an abstract, if you're writing an email, you may be wondering, what are people going to remember about this? Does this make sense? Is my point getting across? And these reader reactions allow you to see what will people remember based on the persona we think you're targeting. So in this case, is my course instructor going to remember, what are they going to remember and what are they going to ask questions about? So I can see, okay, they are going to remember sort of the larger points, but hey, there's some things that are missing in this abstract. I need to talk about my methodology. I can talk about the measures. And what I love about this is it's making, again, suggestions. So it's saying, hey, here's what you may want to work on. So I could go back and say, okay, I'm going to go do this myself. I'm going to go make sure to write this. But maybe I'm just having writer's block. So I can click on this show example. Hey, what do you mean, Grammarly? What would be a way I could rewrite this? Cool. If I this kind of maybe gets my brain thinking a little bit more about how I could clarify and condense my abstract a little bit, or how I can expand on the methodology specifics. So it might pull some things in here, but it's just taking guesses. So I can come back in to say, okay, I see what it's saying, but I'm going to add my own verbiage into it. These reader reactions are phenomenal. They're just such a great way to challenge yourself to think about what are the areas that you might be missing. I always think of it as I maybe would have gone to Henna on my team here and said, hey, Henna, does this make sense? Is there anything I'm missing? And she can, instead, I can just have this reader's reactions give me that first review, maybe before I send it to Henna. The other thing that we can do is we can change who the audience is. So depending on who I'm targeting, I maybe am going to be looking at my course instructor, or maybe if you are the course instructor, right, you might be saying, okay, well, we want everyone to be thinking about this for our research supervisors, or we want this to be for student journals, or I'm going to describe who would be reading this, and then what are they going to remember, and what are those things that they're going to maybe we could expound upon. Some of the other agents that makes this writing space so cool. So I wanted to call out, we have the plagiarism checker where it can look to say, hey, is there anything here that maybe we need to cite? Anything that seems like it's been copied over? Nope, mine's in a good spot. Great, that's great to hear. You could also, though, use the citation finder. So this is the same thing where it's saying, do you have, or similar, do you have anything that maybe this has been taken from somewhere else that we should include in our citation? And this is saying, oh, hey, maybe I need to include this citation. I can choose what format I want to have. And then if I've got that in place, I can go ahead and copy that. So I can get the full citation or the in text. Great. And now I have that included in my document. So again, another great way to kind of make sure that you are incorporating all of the different components you may want to have. The last one I wanted to talk about, because I encourage you to check out all of these different agents. I particularly would recommend reader reactions, what do we talk about here? The plagiarism checker and the citation finder. But the AI chat is also great. I've used this in my day to day. I know we're right at 10 minutes here. I'm going to wrap this in the next two so we can answer any questions you all may have. So I may want to just, kind of have a conversation with it. How would I get started on my paper after my abstract? And maybe I'm showing kind of my knowledge about how to write this because I think your abstract should come last if I'm remembering correctly. Y'all can keep me honest. But it can start to give me some ideas about how I would do this. Okay, so I need to think about the body and the context. Here are the different sections for the body. Or maybe I can talk to it and say, how could I improve my abstract? And I think what's really neat about this is so in the other experience, right, with our assistant, it does everything in that window, and then you can either, insert it or you can copy it and paste it in. But this version with the AI chat actually uses them as suggestions. So it's saying, here's how you could correct and clarify the focus. Here's how you can, again, condense the methods. It kind of gives you that overview. And I like that it inserts it as a suggestion. So you can read it. You can decide if this is kind of in line with what you want. I can click on dismiss, and now I can go ahead and write on it, continue to edit it myself. So really a phenomenal place to use Grammarly. Again, I'm encouraging that it does work everywhere, but this docs experience allows you to use a lot of different types of tools to get the results that you all are looking for, or kind of get those extra eyes to think about things that maybe you hadn't thought about. Okay, I think I got my 2 minutes, so I want to make sure to answer any questions that might have come in. So are there any other questions that we got in the Q&A?
We did have a question of how do you activate the sidebar for reader reactions if you don't see it?
Okay. So when you're in your documents, let me just go back to my document home here. So I open my new doc or you have it written out already. It should be on that right-hand side. So if you hover over on the right, you should see all of the different agents that are available to you there. And then once you open it, so reader reactions would be down here. I click on it. And once you click on that little person, looks like people in front of almost like a TV screen, it should open that reader reactions view.
This user's still not seeing it.
Okay. We can check in the setup too, to see if it's been enabled. Henna, do you have an idea?
No, that's what I was going to suggest too, to see if it's been enabled. And if it has not been, that's why it might not be showing up on the side.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it looks like there's a few people for whom it's not showing up. So it looks like we need to enable it on the settings on the back end. And then, like Rachel said, when you hover to the right or like the little caret icon shows up, then it should pop up the rest of the choices. So we'll take a look at that.
And also make sure you're in the Anschutz account too. So if you haven't already gotten your license, make sure to go to the store, make sure you're in that account. If you're trying to use it on like your own, we'd have to check and see there, but we'll check on that back end. Any other questions?
Nope.
Okay. So what I'll do is I'll send the team some good resources for you all to continue learning about this and get that productivity, you know, access to Grammarly and all those wonderful things that we have. But I do want to thank you all for your time today, and I'll make sure to follow up with Tasha and team about making sure those reader reactions are on so you all can start to use those in your day to day.
All right, thanks, Rachel.
Of course. Thank you, team.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. And Tasha, I don't know if we were able to leave, but I'm happy to like sync for like a minute or two after this as well.
Sure.
Tasha, are we able to leave the webinar and go back into kind of a wait room, or should I just send like another link for us to meet?
I'm not sure. We'll try and see
Okay.
what happens. All
Okay,
right.
cool. No, I wonder if I lost Tasha. Okay. I'll send a follow-up email and I'll get some time with her.
Sounds good.
Okay. Thanks,
All
team.
right. Thank you.
Thank
Bye
you.
now.